So we're going to move on to our first lesson. So if you get out your notes that I have given you, we will go over this. Today and Friday, we will go over the European powers because it's essential to understand how we got here, because America really doesn't participate that much in World War One. So you're going to have to know why Europe was going at war. So today we're going to go over a little of the major players, and we're going to progress next class period to the alliance system. And on Monday, we're going to start the whole thing. So, agenda. Why does the First World War matter? And what was Europe prior to World War One? Yeah, I know that's a typo, but bear with me. All right, so there's immediate causes and reasons that it matters, and there are long-term reasons that matter. The immediate is it leads to the Great Depression. The stock market fails and the global economy crumbles, and it leads to the rise of nationalism. Hyper-nationalism, such as Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, and Joseph Stalin. And number two, it directly and indirectly makes the Second World War inevitable. Long-term reasons, it propels the United States into the status of a major world power, because really before World War One, we were looked at as a backwater society. Also, I mean, it's kind of odd that Israel's at war with Palestine right now, and I'm teaching this, but really World War One is the start of that. I mean, because after World War One, the Ottomans are destroyed, and Europe decides that Israel should become a nation, and that's how we get into the Israeli and Palestinian crisis that we still see today. Also, it changes the power dynamic of the Middle East. Like, for centuries, the Ottoman Turks had ruled the Middle East with iron fists, but after World War One, it changes to the Arabs and the Persians. So it really does matter, like, for you today. All right, what was Europe before the First World War? Europe, from the conclusion to the Napoleonic Wars to the First World War, was in general peace. This period is known as the Concert of Europe. Basically, everyone got tired in the early 1800s of fighting because Napoleon kept on making conquests. But Napoleon had such an effect on the power dynamics in Europe that you started to form like new nations like Germany and Austria-Hungary, because he destroyed the old ones like the Austrian Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. The only real wars in this time period, from 1816 to 1914, were the Crimean War and the Franco-Prussian War. This is a very family war. All of the major European powers, except France, were all monarchies, meaning they had a king and queen. All of them either descended from Queen Victoria of Britain or King Christian IX of Denmark. So basically, everyone was related. Like Wilhelm was related to Nicholas, and Nicholas was related to George. So everyone knew everyone, and they were all like cousins. They were all related. Racial ties. The First World War also had many racial tensions, primarily when dealing with Slavic and Germanic issues. Most of the Balkans and Russia were of a people known as Slavs. Austria-Hungary and Germany were Germanic people. Basically, the Balkans are that area. Like, it's in Greece, Serbia, places like that are the Balkans. It's like in the far east of Europe. It's more bordering Russia. All right. So a big reason World War One was probably inevitable is because Germany was rising as a superpower. Basically, Germany under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck, this guy right here, he established a new German nation out of the Confederation of the Rhine. Like, because after Napoleon, there really was like this little area of like these German kingdoms that was left of the old Holy Roman Empire. And Otto von Bismarck said we should all really be together. The main kingdoms were of Prussia and Bavaria. Germany had the most modern army and modern professional army. So yeah, they entering World War One, they hadn't lost a military engagement for over 100 years. Their monarch was Kaiser Wilhelm II. This guy. All right, so Britain and France started to lose a lot of economic influence after the Crimean War, France especially. Britain also was also engaged in many colonial wars in Afghanistan and India that also added to a more passive approach to dealing with prospect of war afterwards, meaning they were trying to stay out of wars after getting their butts handed to them in Afghanistan. Britain was led by Lloyd George in Parliament and King George V in as the monarch. This is King George. All right. Russia was like always known as the man that was 100 years behind everyone. Basically, Russia was a poor, gigantic landmass. They were far less equipped than any other European power militarily. However, their numbers made them a credible threat. They were led by Tsar Nicholas II, and Tsar Nicholas II has a famous daughter named Anastasia. This right here is Anastasia, I think. If I remember, like this picture, they're hard to tell. All right, and the last one, the one that you probably have never heard of, is the sick man in Europe, known as the Ottoman Empire. Like I said, the Ottomans were a dominant power in the Middle East and much of the Mediterranean Sea for centuries. However, through war and trade, they started to dwindle in power and influence. The Ottomans were ruled by Mehmed V and were mortal enemies of Russia, as both had imperial designs of the Balkans. All right. So, what you need to do is you need to complete your slideshow activity that you got passed out, or you can look at on Schoology. You need to send it to me on Schoology. I hope this answers a lot of questions and you got all the notes you need. I will be back on Friday, and I look forward to going over things with you. Man, this is something I'm very interested in because World War One plays out kind of like Game of Thrones or some very high fantasy like political drama, and it's really cool. Like once you start playing with the players. Anyways, if you have any questions, send them to me like through email. And I hope you have a really good day today. All right.